Well, hello there, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. This is Bryce. This is Brent over there. You're watching or listening to, but probably watching Twins Talk Tech, where we talk about tech-related things. And this is episode 55, by the way. Episode 54, we talked about, Brent more specifically, I think, talked about how to make something that's really old, laptop in this specific case, last longer. Is that correct, Brent? Is that what you did?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, essentially.
Okay. What you have? You have a MacBook or MacBook Air? Which one?
MacBook Pro 2011.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Pro.
It's a MacBook Pro. Battery exploded.
Non-retina.
You got already have all the pieces in place. It's working again.
Yes, laptop battery is installed, working just fine. But like any old battery, it doesn't have the life of the original. But
yeah,
it is at least not a exploded battery in my laptop. So
which is probably pretty good. Win. So the way we ended it last week was I want to talk about. They're having a blast over there. We want to talk about old gear, reasons why you might not want to continue it. Or if you do decide to keep it, maybe you might not want to upgrade the operating system more specifically. And I think that's probably the easiest way to start. You've probably noticed this with your phone, right? Except for iOS 12, which has done a pretty good job. Not amazing, not as amazing as Apple claims, but still pretty good job of making some older phones run faster. Right now, I'm FaceTiming you through an iPhone 6 or 6S. I don't remember. I think it's a 6. iOS 11 made this thing a dog. And now it's very usable. Still not, like it was brand new, but it's much, much, much more better than it was. But normally when you upgrade, and it's kind of expected, I guess, right? The software has more features.
Supposed to.
The software is made to some extent for the new processors, but you're using an older processor with less features. And so it's going to run a little slower, a little more kludgy. Maybe it's going to crash a little more. So that's probably the biggest reason to not upgrade the operating system, as well as the apps that you have. Now, some apps you can't upgrade unless you upgrade the operating system. But again, just like applications, phone, laptop, desktop, it's all similar. A lot of people are writing the code in these programs for today's stuff. So if you have a machine from back in the day where you only had 4 gigs of RAM and maybe a Core 2 Duo, not even an i processor, although they've been out, 8 or 9 years now, well, you're already hurting life. Why add insult to injury by trying to put Windows 10 on it? We've done that here at work, and that was probably shouldn't have, but we did. So that's my biggest reason why to not upgrade. As well, I think we mentioned briefly last week, to upgrade, you do get security fixes. You get other bug fixes. So there's definitely a positive side. But if you're one who's impatient, if you're one who maybe you have an application that was made for a certain operating system, by upgrading it, there's a pretty decent chance that program might not work anymore. You might be forced to get the new version, which is now more money, more than likely. And then again, that new software might not run on your old Dinosaur, right? So there's that. Now you flip it, and that's also kind of sort of the same reason why you might not want to keep your old Dinosaur. The prices are actually fairly good with new devices nowadays. A good laptop back in the day was $700 to $1,500. Nowadays, you can get a really good device, good laptop for $500 or less. Matter of fact, you can get one that does way more than an iPad, and yet the iPads, like the iPad Pros, are $1,000. Blows my mind. And I couldn't replace my stuff with an iPad Pro. I want to, especially at that price, but I can't. I would still need to have either a Windows or a Mac operating system, computer, laptop to do certain things. And that infuriates me to some degrees because, again, I do want the iPad Pro, but I can't justify the cost for what it has. But if you upgrade, you have good prices. Almost most vendors nowadays, the stuff that's inside is kind of sort of the same. You know, back in the day, we used to make fun of Acer. Used to make fun of iBuyPower. I think you had... Did you have one of their desktops? Who did you have? You had one that was like a no-name.
At the time, I think it was a no-name, but nowadays, I don't know if Best Buy bought it or what, but CyberPower PC was what I had.
CyberPower.
Back in the day.
It is true. They actually have some pretty good machines, but I think that kind of goes along with what I'm saying. Most components nowadays are made in 2 or 3 factories. If it doesn't meet a certain standard, it's going to go to this guy instead of this guy. But more than likely, what's going to differentiate a company is not necessarily the hardware anymore. Well, it's going to be the price included with what you get. You know, how many gigs of RAM and how much hardware space for what dollar price, right? That's where I start. The baseline is a Core i5. Don't even choose an i3. It's not an option. Core i5 or better, preferably 6th gen or newer. Maybe if it's a laptop, stay away from the i7s because they actually tax your battery more than they should. But the prices are to the point now. Again, even if they're not on sale, $500-600, you're going to get a great machine that for your average person will last them a very long time. This is desktop and laptop related. Maybe not so much on the Mac side of things because they're still pricing themselves out of that area, and that's probably on purpose. They want everyone to think that they're a premium product, and to some degree they are. I do believe that. You know, you're not getting a plastic machine like you are with a Dell, or, you know, I've got a fantastic Dell 13-inch, like 2-in-1. It folds back on itself. I paid $500 for it 2 or 3 years ago, and it's still great. But it's flimsy. If I hold it from one corner, I know maybe it isn't, but it just feels like it's probably bending down towards the other side because it's not strong enough. But so price-wise, I would say that's probably the biggest reason to go ahead and just take the leap, jump, buy something new. Friend of mine, he does some PC support on the side. He has a customer who has an old Windows 95 machine and a Excel spreadsheet from that era that he upgrades or I should say updates. But he's locked into that little area, right? If that's the only thing you know and the only thing you use it for and you don't care about anything else, well, then there's no reason to upgrade. But if you still want to do some fancy stuff, even Facebook nowadays, I mean, goodness gracious, Facebook, Hulu, YouTube, Netflix, if you wanted to do any of that on a laptop, you do kind of need some newer stuff because Chrome, I guess Brave, the new private browser, doesn't take a lot of resources, but even internet browsers take a lot of your system resources. So, and that's where most people's mail is coming from. So they get their mail through the internet. They get their videos, if they watch videos through the internet. They get, of course, you know, any picture related stuff that they do, sending it to family or receiving it from various family, you know, whatever. If Instagram ever comes to a desktop app, that I'm sure will be bloated and reading all of your little tidbits on your machine.
Yeah, everything that Facebook wants to shove in there.
Yeah. So this is probably the fastest podcast. At 10 minutes of my rambling, I'm done. Don't be afraid of it. You know, don't be afraid. Windows 10 is great. I wish it didn't steal as much data as it does, but, you know, Microsoft has got to get in on that game. To some degree, I wish I would go back to Windows 7, maybe even XP. It's still my favorite. But Windows 10 is the prettiest. Better. Do you?
I like 7, yeah. And I don't know too many people that like 10. I don't think I know anybody that likes 8, but 10 is just an upshot from 8. It is better than 8, but anyway, that's changing the subject. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, no, I'm done. That's it. Just, you know, if you don't really have a good, legitimate reason to stick with the old Dinosaur. And if you only have, Bryce, I only have $200. Well, can I get for $200? Well, wait for a sale. Some of these great laptops go on sale for good prices. And if you're willing to spend $200-300 when it's on sale and look for a Core i5 or better, with 8 gigs or more, and preferably an SSD hard drive, even if it's only 128 gigs.
Wow, yeah, avoid that one.
Stay away from the megs.
That'd be hard to find, though, at that
you know what's
price
funny?
range, even on sale.
Here at work, one of our bosses bought everyone a flash drive, and he got it for a song. And then when somebody plugged it in, they realized why they got it for a song. It was a 128 meg flash drive. He bought everybody 128 meg flash drive. So he didn't read the fine print.
Couple pictures on there.
Yeah. But yeah, 128 gig SSD. You get the processor, the RAM, and the SSD. That's going to last you a good. I mean, of course, unless you get the lemon that crashes, but it's going to last you.
What you might want to do, you might want to, if you have an electronics store nearby, whether it's a Best Buy or even a Walmart electronics section, if that's what you have around, they don't sell only garbage. They sell the occasional decent machine. Get to know somebody that works there to the point where they can tell you, hey, we've got this floor model or we've got this older one or whatever that's we're swapping them out, getting rid of them for the new product coming in. For instance, we had not myself, but an organization I'm involved with got a $1,100 laptop for just over $500 because it was the floor model, but it was the type that was not touched. It was just sitting there. And it was at the time, the one that was going out, and they had the new one coming in, the i7 terabyte hard drive, 12 gigs of RAM, everything that was above the specs that were needed for the job it was going to do. And, we got it for a great price. So you can, if you have a $500-600 laptop, that's the regular price. When they're trying to get rid of them, they're going to be tossing that down to that $300 price point. If you get to the $200, that'd be kind of tough unless you buy a used one. But, if you find somebody that takes care of their stuff, then you can get a used one. But I'm always personally a little leery, but that might bounce back to that trust issue that I've got with, especially with hardware. And that's another reason why I'm a little leery to tell most people to stay with the old stuff. There's a part of my brain that's like, okay, all of these Microsoft updates, they're probably putting in stuff to take more of your data away and share it with vendors. But at the same time, they are patching security flaws. But next year, is it next year, 2020, where they're not going to be updating Windows 7 anymore? Mm-hmm. They're already not updating Windows XP. So if you're on XP, then you need to keep your security software up to date. If you're on Windows 7, you're going to have to start keeping that security software up to date, as well as everything else, and stop using Flash. So you are kind of taking that responsibility on yourself even more than you already should if you hang on to those older operating systems. They are nice to have all of the programs that you use still work. They are nice for the comfort level, and that you know what you're doing and where you're going if you use it a lot. And, the changes, especially the change from, if you went from XP to Windows 10, you wouldn't know how to do hardly anything, probably. But, so that's the downside to that. But, it's, if you're keeping the older hardware, you may want to just take those responsibilities on, because putting the new software on will make those things, in many cases, fairly painful to use.
Yeah, I don't really recommend most people to stick with their old stuff. I mean, that's just, if you're going to stick with the old hardware and not upgrade, yeah, it's going to run fine. Again, I use my wife and her laptop as an example. MacBook Air, still running on a 9-year-old operating system. She could upgrade to a couple newer, but she's even still locked into some really old stuff. And it still runs fantastic, and partly because she hasn't upgraded it. She's also the type of person who hops on it, checks her mail, goes to Pinterest and 3 other sites, and she's done. I mean, that's all she does. She uses her phone and her tablet for 99% of everything else. If it's work related or something she has to type for a really long time, she has a work laptop, and it's Windows 10, and it's got all the fancy stuff on it. So that's why I say, if you're a very niche, this is the bubble I live in here, this little microphone, then
and most people are maybe. Probably.
Yeah. But upgrade just so that, because there are people out there scanning the internet's network. And if you're on Spectrum or one of these other companies that don't really lock down their networks too much, I can scan my neighbor's stuff if their ports are open And most people don't know what that means, and that's actually why people are doing it, because your average person doesn't know what that means. So if I'm out there scanning stuff, which is illegal from what I understand, but still, if I'm scanning stuff, the homeowner usually doesn't know unless I'm actually hacking in and causing problems, wreaking havoc. But,
for those who don't know, it's basically like leaving your windows open when you go to sleep or when you leave the house. There's an easy access into your device is what that basically means. And a lot of
the
things
window
need
is
it.
the port, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things need it. You need to open ports up for gaming in certain cases on your router. So there are reasons to do it, but generally speaking, if you don't know the reason, then don't do it. Or find somebody that knows what they're doing and get those ports closed, because there are some defaults that probably shouldn't be defaults and all that kind of stuff. But I like grc.com, by the way, if you ever want to scan your ports and find out what exactly the internet can see. grc.com, Gibson Research Company, I think is what a corporation, whatever it is. grc.com, he has something called Shields Up that you just click a button and it scans and it can tell you what the internet can see of you from a legal standpoint. There, of course, like Bryce mentioned, software and so forth that can do some deeper scans that are looking specifically for flaws in the Windows operating system or Flash or something like that. But for just a generic scan, that's a nice place to go to. And I'll tell you from experience, one example of that. This maybe was 2010 or so. I was installing Windows 2000. I think it was, whatever, one of the releases. It had some additional text and numbers after it, but anyway, Windows 2000. And Windows was still technically updating it, but the copy that I had to install was a few patches prior, maybe even at that point a year or more before that. So I installed it, did everything regular, and I mentioned to the individual, we need to probably do this offline and get these, whatever patches are available, burn them to a disk, because that was at that time, that was how you had to get it. Flash drives weren't big enough for a lot of things, if they were even around in 2010, at a feasible price. But he was too eager to get online with this machine, and in my brain it's like within seconds, but it was probably within 10 minutes that machine was owned by somebody else on the internet. And I was like, well, there you go. So here's your disk, format, start it over, keep it offline. And we eventually got him some, the updates burned to disk, and he was able to do that offline.
Yeah.
And then when he got online, he was a little safer. So that's a little story there.
Yeah, it happens a lot. You mentioned about flash drives and all the space. I remember when I bought I don't have it with me, but I have a little keychain flash drive. It's nice. It's, it's aluminum, a little hole on it, and the USB side, 8 gigs. And when I got it, it was probably $50 or $40, but it was 8 gigs. Right. I could fit so much on it. Oh my goodness. It's just last week, B&H had a sale for 256 gig flash drive. That is the size of my thumbnail. And what? It's crazy. 256 gigs on something I can lose so easily. And I bought it because it was like half price, but it was like, what am I going to do with it? And then I get to work and they buy me a 128 gig flash drive. They replaced the 128 meg ones with 128 gigs. And so I'm looking for a little lanyard that I can put on my work keychain. Because that's it is convenient to be able to pop in somewhere and back up someone's data and restore it to their new computer or whatever if it needs to be done. Sometimes the network's not available. So, but 128 gigs, 256 gigs, they're literally just like half an inch to 3/4 of an inch long. So they look like those little things that come with your mice, right? Yeah.
This is Bryce saying it here. This is on
pretty much that size. Blurry,
but you see the size of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Things tracking my face, but yeah, that's it.
So, and I recommend them, but at the same time, I don't. If you're I couldn't give them to my kids. I could probably give them to my wife and say, here, put this on your keychain, and I've only had it 2 days, 3 days, so I don't even know if I'm going to lose it. It won't be what I put the most important stuff on, but I'm thinking you even just have it as almost like a secondary hard drive. Put it in the USB port and leave it in the corner, on a hub or something. And then just forget it's there and just use that as an extra backup location or something. But anyways, prices are coming down. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to upgrade, And think about these tablets. You can get refurbished iPads and Samsung and Sony tablets, and LG makes a few. And there's some no-name brands, maybe even the Amazon stuff. If you got a young one, you want to get them into the tablet world, the Amazon tablets, the Fire tablets, they're actually not that bad, especially for $50. You know they're taking a loss on those things because they actually run pretty good. So think about those. Maybe you don't actually need a full-on machine. Oh, but I like the keyboard. Well, a lot of them take a USB keyboard or a Bluetooth keyboard. So, think outside the box, as it were. All right, I'm done.
Especially if
Rant
you're doing
over.
basic stuff. If you're doing basic stuff, especially. Internet's email.
If you want to learn coding, if you want to edit video, you can probably edit video and pictures to some degree, but if you really want to get into that stuff, that's not what you don't need a tablet. People are claiming you can do it with an iPad Pro, like the higher end model, but even then, a lot of people are complaining about getting stuff on and off of it. How do you back up? Sorry, Apple, your iCloud is not sufficient.
Right.
All right, so that's all I have. Just think it through. Go slow. Don't make any rash decisions. Look at the price. Make sure everything is as high as it can be for that price. So many people will just walk in and see it and go, looks nice, feels nice, done. And they just spent $200 more than they needed to. And if you have $200, well, then maybe not a big deal. But if you don't, then, save it, spend it on a good external mouse or something. Well, not $200 on a mouse, but you know what I mean.
Right.
The extra money. A nice bag to carry it in.
Yeah.
All right. There's been some interesting stuff on the internet. Maybe, what's your name? Brent and I will, I forgot your name, compile a list of these silly things and talk about them next week on Twins Talk Tech. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. Take care.
Maybe next week, Brent will be excited too. But don't get your hopes up.
I'll drink some coffee, but then
No, you won't.
mind.
No. All right, ciao.
Bye.